I was saying, it's your boy Rico from Street Scores, and man, Mel Kiper mocked an offensive lineman to the Washington Commanders in the first round of his 2023 NFL mock draft. I believe this is his first one yet. Of course, he's going to come out with a couple of more, and we'll discuss those as well. But as of right now, with his first initial mock draft, before the combine, before all of that type of stuff is going down, he mocks us taking an offensive lineman. So first, we're going to read and break down Mel Kiper's pick for the Commanders and the logic and the reasoning behind it. Is it a good fit and a smart move for the Commanders? Why and why not? Secondly, we're going to analyze this player, break them all the way down. Let's look at some advanced statistics. Let's look at some history as far as they're playing college football. What are his weaknesses and strengths? How did he look against top competition? Positives and negative traits. What this person is already good at and what they need to work on moving into the future. How raw are they? Are they ready to play right now? Where are some areas of improvement that he can look for in his game that we can develop once we bring him here? And then, of course, lastly, I want to run through some potential starting Commanders offensive line scenarios. I have one great idea for week one until this guy is absolutely ready to be that Pro Bowl, all-pro caliber player that he may not be ready to be by week one. And then I also have a mid-season starting O-line scenario for when this guy finally taps into some of his potential and is ready to take over his true position where he can end up being a perennial Pro Bowler at that spot. But before we dive into all of that, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell next to the subscription button so you get notification immediately. And every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one, make sure you pull up every Sunday for the Commanders live call-in show where I open up the phone lines. Y'all call in, you give your opinions on whatever you want to talk about. And of course, like I said, I have so much content to come out with. Should be making 2 to 3 videos a day, so make sure y'all stay tuned. I've just been busy. That's why I've only been able to get like one a day the past few days, and I didn't even get one out the day before yesterday. But I'm on it, man. I have film sessions I need to work on for my channel members only, mock drafts, all kinds of free agency and draft updates, Aaron Rodgers rumors, Derek Carr rumors, all of that type of stuff. I'm working on videos for all of that. But without further ado, let's get it. All right, so like I said, you have to have an ESPN Plus membership to actually be able to read the article in full. But Mel Kiper mocked an offensive lineman to the Commanders at 16. Who is this offensive lineman? Well, none other than offensive tackle Broderick Jones from the University of Georgia. Mel Kiper said, here's yet another team with quarterback issues. I agree. As the Commanders traded for Carson Wentz last offseason, which cost them their 3rd rounder this year and 3rd rounder last year, but turned back to Taylor Heinicke down the stretch. Well, actually, not even all the way down the stretch. Taylor Heinicke got benched for Wentz. Wentz was terrible. Then we went with Sam Howell. Neither is likely to be their week 1 starter. Of course not. Carson Wentz is the most obvious cut candidate I've seen for the Commanders in years. Didn't play well, potentially costing $26 million. You can cut him and get all of that $26 million back. And then Taylor Heinicke, I hope we bring him back as like a dependable veteran backup, but I'm not paying him any crazy money. And he definitely should not be starting week 1. Taylor Heinicke starting week 1. I'm assuming this franchise just doesn't care. I wonder whether they will be players in the veteran signal caller market and bring in someone to compete with Sam Howell. No matter who is playing quarterback though, they have to improve along the offensive line. Jones is a 310-pound mauler who didn't allow a single sack as a Bulldogs left tackle in 2022. I wouldn't be shocked if he went in the top 10. That's something as well. Like, whenever I see Brock Jones mocked out of the top 10, I'm actually pretty confused. Because I know some people see, oh, if he's that good of an offensive tackle and with as much of a premium that position is at the NFL level, why would he even make it out of the top 10? And I have the same questions. I think when people see him mocked outside of the top 10, they think, oh, he can't actually be that good if he's a left tackle, potentially. Not even just a right tackle, a left tackle, and people are mocking him outside of the top 10. There has to be something wrong. And for me, and we're going to dive into his weaknesses and strengths, I don't see anything wrong enough to where people feel like he should go outside of the top 10. So it's kind of unrealistic to expect Broderick Jones to make it to 16. I think especially after the combine and we get some of his numbers back, dog, man, I don't think he's making it out of the top 10. So it may be somewhat unrealistic to actually expect the Commanders to be able to get their hands on a Broderick Jones. But who knows? Maybe enough people will favor Paris Johnson Jr. or Peter Skoronski. Who knows? If I had to pick between the 3, I prefer Broderick Jones personally. But again, we're going to dive into his weaknesses and strengths and all of that soon. But I know when people see the Commanders at 16th overall getting what should be a good left tackle at the NFL level, those guys don't make it out of the top 10, which again makes people question, well, is he even that good? Why is he even available at 16? But let's take a look at everybody that was drafted before him to see like how this even happened. Well, number 1 overall, again, no trades. Jalen Carter, another Georgia Bulldog, number 1 overall, back-to-back seasons, championship back-to-backs, and then number 1 overall picks back-to-backs. Well, I highly doubt it here. Last year's quarterback class was a little iffy. This year, the Chicago Bears are going to get way too many offers, like 3 first-round pick offers to move up to their pick. Why would they not take that? Unless they actually want to take Bryce Young for some crazy reason and then package Justin Fields away, they're better off just keeping Justin Fields and then trading down from that number 1 and getting all kinds of first-round picks. They already have the most cap space in the NFL. Then they walk into that 2024 draft with all of those first-round picks in a QB-heavy class, so they could potentially even trade down again and get even more picks and then take a lot of the top players at other positions. The Bears could end up being basically a collection of college football's best players outside of quarterback from the past 2 years, from this past 2022 season and this upcoming 2023 season. That's a really interesting strategy if they want to go that way. But nevertheless, with no trades, Mel Kiper has Jalen Carter going number 1. Of course, he's a Georgia Bulldog. Why not? Then CJ Stroud, number 2 to the Texans. Will Anderson, number 3 to the Cardinals. And Will Anderson, you should have came to Georgia, man. Your hometown team. I couldn't just imagine Will Anderson, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Travon Walker, all of those guys on the same defensive line at the same time. He should have been there. Will Anderson is from the state of Georgia, born and raised. I was super disappointed when he went to Alabama, man. I thought he would have stayed home. But nevertheless, you're from Georgia, so I'm going to root for you at the NFL level, but I just could not root for you at the college level going to Alabama at all. Then you have Bryce Young, number 4 to the Colts. Will Levis, number 5 to the Seattle Seahawks. I mean, Mel Kiper's way higher on Will Levis than I am, but it is what it is. Tyree Wilson, number 6 to the Lions. Peter Skoronski, number 7 to the Raiders, so that's one team that he expects to like Peter Skoronski more than Broderick Jones. Then Miles Murphy to the Falcons. I remember his whole recruiting process. That's just so crazy he's already in the NFL. Anthony Richardson to the Carolina Panthers. I'm one of those people that's willing to take Anthony Richardson and work with him. I'm just one of those guys. I'm a big Anthony Richardson fan, even though I hate Florida. And then number 10 to the Eagles from the New Orleans Saints trade. He has them taking Kalijah Cansey from Pitt, and that's one guy I've not done much film watching on, so I don't even exactly know who that is, to be honest with you. Then Paris Johnson Jr. from Ohio State to the Titans at 11. So another team that prefers an offensive tackle more than Broderick Jones. So that would mean that Broderick Jones is the 3rd tackle taken in his draft. Then Lucas Van Ness, the defensive lineman, to the Texans. Then Jackson Smith from Ohio State to the Jets to reunite with Garrett Wilson. That's interesting. Then cornerback Devin Witherspoon for the New England Patriots, and I think that would be a really good pick for the Commanders at 16 if he were to make it that far. Then the tight end Michael Mayer from Notre Dame to the Green Bay Packers, and then you have Broderick Jones to us. So Mel Kiper thinks Broderick Jones will be the 3rd tackle taken, and I think that would be a mistake on a lot of teams' parts ahead of us because I like Broderick Jones the most. I can see the argument for Paris Johnson, I can see the argument for Peter Skoronski, but I think at the end of the day, especially within like the next 2-3 years, Broderick Jones is going to be the best tackle from this class, and arguably one of the best tackles to come out of the draft in a couple of years. I think he has that type of potential. But let's dive into it, man. Well, let's first start with some history and statistics. Like Mel Kiper said, that man, Broderick Jones, starting at left tackle for the Bulldogs the entire year with all of the teams that we played. Tennessee, Ohio State, playoffs, championship, SEC title game, all of this top competition, and never allowed a sack the entire season. I feel like that alone should get you drafted within the top 10, because what else do you have to prove? We're going to talk about how he's still raw in certain areas, but when you have never allowed a sack your entire final season, 15-0 season, because of the playoff games and all of that included, most teams didn't play 15 games this season. So Broderick Jones played the most games you could possibly play in a college football season against top competition. I wish we could have gotten a chance to go against Alabama so he could say he blocked against Will Anderson and still didn't allow a sack, even though that would have been really tough. But still, again, this man starting a left tackle for the Bulldogs didn't allow a single sack in the 2022 season. Let's give you some more statistics. On top of only allowing 0 sacks the entire season, again starting all 15 games for Georgia throughout the entire season, he only allowed 6 pressures and was named the All-SEC team, of course. I also think it's very noteworthy that Broderick Jones is the same one, I believe, that in high school His junior and senior years, I think he lost both of those championships on like the last plays of the game and things like that. So that's why these back-to-back championships mean so much more to him than most people. Because that man had heartbreak after heartbreak in high school, man. I felt sorry for him. But let's dive in a little bit deeper, man. 634 pass blocking snaps prior to the national championship. Only allowed, and this is throughout his entire career at Georgia. This is not just his junior year, this final season. Only allowed 2 sacks, 3 QB hits, 12 hurries, and 17 pressures, and also played in 696 run blocking snaps. So again, 634 pass blocking snaps in his career at Georgia, and that's it. I mean, in the Peach Bowl specifically, against Ohio State, 40 pass block snaps, only 1 pressure allowed. That's it. And just to take a closer look, he only technically had 1 pass blocking snap in 2020 as a freshman. Of course, didn't allow a sack then, but in 2021, out of 194 pass blocking snaps, allowed 2 sacks, and then this past season, 2022, 439 pass blocking snaps, no sacks. And I'm not gonna lie, we're lucky to have him, man, because remember going back to high school from Lithonia, Georgia, he was a 5-star recruit and a lot of people wanted him, but he committed to his hometown team, the Georgia Bulldogs, all the way back in 2018, even though he was part of the 2020 class. So we were lucky. He was just one of those guys that born and raised wanted to go to Georgia, and thank goodness, because who knows how this season would have turned out without him. Those snaps that he got in 2021 mostly came after Jamari Salyer got hurt later in the season, and then he started against Tennessee and Missouri and showed what he could do a little bit in those games. And then again, when he got his chance in 2022 to be the full-time starter, he showed out, man. We got to remember, man, going to the traits, this is a 6'4", 310-pound offensive lineman that moves way faster and way smoother than he should be able to at that point. So I would say his best trait is his athleticism and his ceiling for sure. Arguably the highest ceiling of any offensive lineman in this entire draft, regardless of position. And again, at that size, he shouldn't be able to move the way that he does. I mean, he can pull, block, and everything as a tackle. He's very strong. He's a mauler in the run game. Again, with the feet that he has, at the size that he has, again, to be able to be a really good pull blocker is insane in itself. And he's really good at both gap blocking and zone blocking. And we know we love to run a lot of zone runs. Even though with a new offensive coordinator, maybe that changes, but I doubt it. I don't think you would want to overhaul this roster completely, because then you have to draft a different scheme of offensive linemen. I mean, you would almost have to entirely change your personnel potentially, especially offensive line wise. If you draft and bring in a lot of zone blocking guys, you try to change scheme. Granted, you have Broderick Jones that has excelled in both, but not necessarily everybody on this roster, the current Commanders offensive line, is good at that type of stuff. So I think he comes with a certain floor because he's shown that he can excel in every type of blocking that you need, especially in the run game. And then with his athleticism and freakish potential, he has Pro Bowler, All-Pro written all over him. It may not be day one. Peter Skoronski may look better than Broderick Jones week 1, but I think by the end of the season, Broderick Jones will be the better tackle, and definitely by the end of their careers, in my opinion. And I feel like Paris Johnson Jr. is somewhere in the middle of potential, a little less potential than Broderick Jones, but also a little bit less of a floor than Peter, but a slightly higher ceiling than Peter. So it's a really interesting mix of the top 3 tackles. I feel like Broderick Jones has the highest ceiling. I feel like Peter has the higher floor. But again, my point is, don't get it confused. It's not like Broderick Jones is just this extremely raw ball of clay. Again, to now allow a single sack in an entire season, I feel like says enough. Now, I feel like the one weakness to his game is his hand usage, especially in pass protection. Again, never allowed a sack, but at the NFL level, with the ways that he's raw with his hand usage, most notably his hand placement, that may get him into some trouble at the NFL level. But this is just the type of guy. One of my main takeaways from Broderick Jones is that you're not going to out athleticism this guy. It's going to take like a technician like Nick Bosa to be able to beat him, but I don't see Micah Parsons just throwing Broderick Jones with one arm like he was doing against the 49ers. You're not going to see just Myles Garrett bully this guy. You're not going to see a guy like Chase Young, who's still struggling with technique, to just completely beat this guy. You're not going to out athleticism this guy at all. You're going to have to come with some crazy technique, and that's only going to work for a little while. Once Broderick Jones gets some better coaching, improves his technique and his hand usage and his hand placement, it's quiet for people. I'm telling y'all, Broderick Jones has crazy potential in my opinion. Now, he has great feet, especially for a guy his size. A guy that big and strong should not be able to move the way he does, but I would still like for him to improve his footwork technique wise. So once we can get his hands and his feet on the same page, literally all pro potential in my opinion. I can't wait to see what he tests at the combine because he's really explosive. I mean, his initial punch off the snap is ridiculous. He is a great anchor. To be a mauler in the run game and to now allow a single sack in the passing game, to me that sounds like top 8 pick, but you know, hopefully people sleep on him and allow him to slide all the way to us to 16, even though I highly doubt it by the time the draft gets here. I feel like that's going to be pretty unrealistic. I mean, this guy has shown on tape that he can hold a defensive lineman back with just one arm at times. He has that type of strength, man. I'm telling you. He's still raw in some areas, and he's one of those really high ceiling guys, but he's not boom or bust. He comes with a certain floor to where you take him in 16 and you're doing backflips. If we could teach him to keep his pad level a little bit lower more consistently as well, it's over with. But now let's get to some scenarios. Like I said, my week 1 scenario is a little bit different than mid-season. Mid-season is our best case scenario, our highest ceiling scenario. But starting week 1, if you draft Broderick Jones with the 16th overall pick, and we just for some reason don't address offensive line and free agency at all, other than bringing back Wes Schweitzer for some crazy reason, if that's all we do for some reason, then I have Charles Leno continuing to start at left tackle. I feel like a lot of the hate that he's been getting is blown out of proportion just a little bit. Now, granted, he was getting beat at times, but I don't feel like he deserved all of the hate that he was getting from this fan base. So I'm okay with Charles Leno starting at left tackle if we have to week 1. For now. Then I see Chris Paul, who looked really good and like he definitely belonged against the Cowboys that last game of the season, our 7th round rookie from this past draft. Give him a chance to start at left guard, and I think he ends up winning it, honestly. And then center, I say you give Chase Roulier another year. First of all, I already did a whole cap space breakdown and why cutting Chase Roulier this season doesn't make much sense. You wouldn't save much money at all. It would be so much dick cap left over, it wouldn't be worth it. So give him another season to prove that he can actually stay healthy. He's a top 5 center in the NFL when healthy. The problem is, when is he healthy? Availability is your best ability. Give him another season. But at the same time, I say you draft a potential starting center, probably the 3rd or 4th round at the latest, just in case. Get a guy that you can groom behind him, and not a Keith Ishmael that ended up failing. Get a true potential starting center just in case Chase Roulier gets hurt. Now, of course, we're going to have Tyler Larson and Wes Schweitzer as backup centers just in case as well. But I say you go ahead and go big on center because you need to have that next guy ready to be groomed this 2023 season so he can start the 2024 season if Chase Roulier keeps getting hurt. Then right guard, I say move Samuel Cosmi to right guard. I honestly do. I think he has Brandon Sheriff level potential there. I think the times that he played poorly at right guard this season was, first of all, he was hurt and banged up, and then also the mix of playing right guard and right tackle on and off. I mean, there were some drives he wouldn't play at all. Then the next drive in the same game, he would play right guard mostly. And then the next drive in the same game as well, play right tackle. I mean, they were moving him all over the place, and he even admitted at the end of the season it was very confusing for him. I still don't exactly understand what we were doing there and why we were doing it and whose fault that was. Scott Turner, I don't know. Ron Rivera, the offensive lines coach, honestly don't know, but please stop doing that to a young, developing offensive lineman. Don't move him all around the place like that, and then take him off the field one drive and then throw him back out there on the field the next drive. Like, that was such a weird process. I think he could end up being a star at right guard, a potential Pro Bowler for sure. I think he could literally be a Brandon Sheriff type of situation. Was supposed to be a tackle, moved him to guard, right guard specifically, all pro. Samuel Cosmi has that potential, man. The athleticism is there. And then, of course, that leaves one spot open at right tackle. I like Cornelius Lucas as a backup if we want to keep him, but Broderick Jones starting at right tackle week 1, I feel like is a home run hit. I feel like Sam Howell could definitely work with that. And then moving on to my mid-season scenario, at a certain point when Broderick Jones finally cleans up a lot of his technical issues, you gotta move him to left tackle. He has Pro Bowl left tackle written all over him. And then Charles Leno, who struggled a little bit at left tackle last season, especially the second half of the season, you move him to right tackle. And with him being a pretty good left tackle, moving him to right tackle is only gonna make his job easier for the most part. And I feel like that right there, fully healthy and everybody reaching their potential, is a top 7 offensive line, honestly, with Broderick Jones at left tackle. So I think that could be a smart move, man. Now, I can definitely see the argument for whether we need to draft quarterback in the first round. There's a lot of really good corners in the first round. Witherspoon, Gonzalez, Porter, and even as a Georgia Bulldog fan, I'm not as big of a fan of Keely Ringo, but if we were to trade back, maybe Keely Ringo in the first round, but Broderick Jones makes it to the 16th pick, and we're there at the 16th pick, you got to take him, no questions asked. I don't care what you did in free agency. That man is too talented, and again, the stats don't lie. You can look at his tape and nitpick all you want with as raw as he is with his hand usage and his footwork and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, when you don't allow a single sack in a 15-game season against top competition in college football, I think that says something. And I also think what goes a really long way for these guys, especially guys that play at Georgia, play at Alabama, Ohio State, and things like that, Broderick Jones is used to having to block against Jalen Carter, Travon Walker, Mykel Williams, Devonta Wyatt, Jordan Davis, all of these guys in practice every week since he's gotten to Georgia. Guys like that, it may feel a little bit easier when they get to the NFL level instead of having to go against all these first round talents every day in practice. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be easier every week. Of course, when you go against like a Nick Bosa, you got to be ready. Nick Bosa is a different type of guy. Myles Garrett is a different type of guy. Micah Parsons is a different type of guy. It's a lot of different type of guys out there. But on an average NFL week, Broderick Jones may feel like, man, this isn't as bad as what I had to deal with every day in college with all of the talent that Georgia has. And again, it's not just Georgia. Alabama offensive lineman, Ohio State offensive lineman, probably Clemson offensive lineman, Texas. But I feel like Georgia, especially with all of these first round picks that are coming from the defensive line, that's going to be back-to-back seasons and probably even bleed into the 2024 draft as well. These are the guys he's had to block against every day, all day. And that's why when they get to these college games, he's not allowing any sacks, because blocking against even Tennessee's defensive linemen, TCU's defensive linemen, Ohio State's defensive linemen isn't worse than what he has to block against in practice every day. That's why I really hope Dylan Raiola comes to Georgia, because you're going to practice against the best defense in college football every day. So when you actually go into college games, it's going to feel easier. But that's just a small little 5-second campaign for Dylan Raiola to come on down to Georgia, along with Julian Lewis as well. Make sure you pull up in 2026. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. How do you feel about this whole Broderick Jones pick and situation? How do you feel about his weaknesses and strengths? Do you agree? And then based on his weaknesses and strengths, do you feel like he's worth the 16th pick? Do you feel like we may even need to trade up to get a guy like that? And of course, let me know your starting offensive line scenarios, not including free agency. We're just talking draft. Even if you're not taking Broderick Jones, if you're taking Paris Johnson Jr. or Peter Skoronski, let me know how you feel the Commanders offensive line may look like going into this 2023 regular season. And if you want to include free agency, you may be able to throw that in there as well. And of course, man, please leave a like on this video if you liked it, if you learned anything. And as always, I appreciate all of the support, man. Shouts out to all of my sponsors, especially my Pro Bowl sponsors whose names you scrolling on the screen right now. I'm gonna catch y'all later. I'm out.